I'm working on this drum and bass track, and it sounds like this. I'm pretty happy with how this sounds, but I was realizing it didn't have kind of the same cohesion that I was hearing from drum and bass artists that I really like Noisia and other people on Vision Records. The EQ is pretty great, and I feel like a lot of the cohesion of the subgroups is pretty solid. So like the bass, for example, this has got a glue compressor on it that is keeping everything kind of together. So like if you hear this, and the same with the drums. I've got some glue compression happening on the drums. So if we listen to that in isolation, it seems pretty cohesive to me. But when I play everything together, it feels like I'm missing something. And I couldn't really tell what it was for a while. And then it hit me that I'm compressing together these subgroups. So the individual instruments sound great together. But I didn't do anything to glue together all of these subgroups themselves. So I went ahead and went to my main kind of master bus I've got set up here and added a glue compressor. Now, a lot of people, when they're talking about glue compression, will say things like, make sure you have a lengthy attack, automatic release, not too high of a ratio, not too high of a threshold, just a little bit of gain reduction, maybe 2 to 4 dB. But I've kind of done the opposite. This is heavy drum and bass. I want it to be like flatlined. So what I have done, and as you'll see here, is I've set the threshold pretty low. Quite a bit of makeup is hitting probably around 10 decibels of gain reduction. And now listen to how much more cohesive this sounds together. And as a quick reminder, this is what it sounds like before. I'll kind of flick between them so you can hear the difference. So to me, that sounds just so much bigger. It sounds so much more cohesive and really feels like a full sound. But I can understand if you've never really used glue compression, especially on the mix bus, that you may not be able to kind of tell what's happening. So instead of me over exaggerating what this looks like and doing some like pretty unrealistic things, what we're going to do instead is take a look at this spectral analyzer. So the first thing I want to take a note of is the actual waveform itself. So if I take off the glue compression and play it just for a second, what we've got here is the kick, the snare, and then the bass in the background. You can see the bass here is peaking around kind of -8 decibels, and the kick is peaking, around somewhere between 0 and -2. So we've got quite a large delta between the snare, kick, and the bass sounds here. So watch what happens to this waveform when I turn on the glue compression. We've now squashed the compressor. What it's done is it's taken the kick, the snare, all the things that are above that ratio, and it's squashed it down. So if I were to take off this makeup gain, actually you won't really see it, but what it's done is it's taken it and it's pushed it down. And then the makeup gain has brought up the bass. So we've effectively reduced that delta between the kick, snare, and the bass. So we've reduced that amount, which causes a gluing effect. It makes everything kind of feel much more kind of squashed together. And then on top of that, I have a little bit of clipping using this kilohertz clipper just to take off some of the tops. And this is really going to squash it even further by getting rid of some of these peaks. So now with the combination of the glue compressor and the clipper, we've got quite a bit of room now, a bit of headroom to be able to push the limiter to make a much louder sound. So that's one thing that the glue compressor is doing. It's taking the loud sounds of the kick and the snare, pushing them down, and then letting us use makeup gain to bring up those quieter sounds. But the other thing that it's doing, which is very hard to tell on a mix that's quite as kind of full as this one, but it's actually adding, it is actually adding a bunch of saturation to the sound too. So not only is it squashing the sound, but it's also adding saturation to the sound. And so you won't be able to tell this really, but the harmonic content of the sound now is pretty full, as you can tell by the sound we have available here. But what the Glue Compressor is going to do is take that sound and add harmonics based on that sound. Like, it adds very gentle harmonics, especially in this soft clip mode, but it adds just a nice amount of kind of little bits of saturation in the background that adds additional gluing that, again, you can't really tell, but it is very subtly adding extra glue to that sound. So like I mentioned, with this spectrogram, it's hard to tell with this kind of crazy setup here, but what we can do instead is simple sine wave and see how that looks. If I add a serum, and then we'll just add a quick like sine subwave, maybe around, we'll do it here. And then if we take a look at what that now looks like without the glue compression, it's just going to be kind of a little batch of frequencies around here. So kind of between, 30 and 80 hertz, that's where we're hitting. Now with the glue compressor, it's not really compressing too much because it doesn't need to kind of put a load of sounds together, but it is going to add some gentle harmonic content here, as you'll see. So it's added a few different harmonics to this bass sound here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. And so this is just a simple sine wave. But you can imagine when we have our very, very full frequency mix, like we do, that we'll be able to kind of add a bunch of small effects, small saturation across the whole frequency spectrum, which adds to that gluing sound, which is what we end up with here.